Hi, I'm Tina LaFerrier. It's 2026 in July, just before band camp, and we're in Fernandina Beach, about to interview Asa Jernigan. Asa, tell us how you got started in music, how you became a band director, and how your life has been.
Okay. My parents started me when I was about 6, taking piano lessons. Enjoyed that for the most part, but it just didn't, there was no social aspect to it. It was such a solitary thing that when band came along in 6th grade, that almost ended my piano once I started playing, because I really connected more with the band part, because it was, instead of practicing only by myself, I could practice with my friends. And we made a fun thing out of it instead of having to go in the front room, we shut the door and play for half an hour. So band was a lot more fun. I started when I was in 6th grade at Wakeona Elementary School in Waycross, and the band director there name was Daniel Galtney. Dan went through, after we did our flutophone time, everybody in 6th grade did. Then those of us who wanted band went for instrument fitting in the cafeteria. I wanted to play flute, and he tried me out on a lot of different things, and I asked about the flute, and Dan said, boys don't play flute. So this was early 1970s. Chances are he had too many flutes already, and that was just a good way of pushing me towards trombone, which he wanted me to play. Because his stepson also played trombone, and we were friends, and that did work out pretty well, because we were competitive all the way through. So that helped. But trombone was not my first choice, but it ended up being the right choice. So I did that, and in 8th grade, we moved from the elementary school to the high school. And when we went to high school at Ware County, we were in marching band in eighth grade with the high school students. So that was a quick move up. And so I started marching band and loved it even more than I had before I got there. By my 10th grade year, I had an open period in the schedule. We were on this ridiculous block schedule where we had two and a half hour classes every day.
Wow.
And a hour and 15 minute, which was band, that went all year. Those 2.5 hour classes changed every 12 weeks. So it was 3 quarters. So 1 quarter, I had a block that was empty, and my band director said, well, you can take a class called Special Projects. In this Special Projects class, there was 3 or 4 of us, I don't remember now, but we went with the band director out to one of the elementary schools and worked with the beginning bands and the second year bands at the elementary school during that 2.5 hour block. And my directors then was Mr. Galtney and David Henson. And with the 2 of them, we worked with the elementary band students. And at that point, I was hooked. That's when I knew I wanted to be a band director. Because just seeing those kids' eyes light up when they got it, when they got something different, that Mr. Galtney would laugh and say, said that last week, you said it, and they listened. Well, I found that works now with my students too. I can say whatever, and then someone else can walk in the room and say it, and it's golden. So that got me hooked, and after that, I knew what I wanted to do. My junior year in high school, the Troy band came and played at my high school. And I was at that point still trying to make up my mind where I wanted to go to college. And after hearing the Troy Symphony Band with Dr. Long, and my parents talking with Dr. Long after the performance, they decided that I was going to Troy. Dr. Long could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. And he sold that program to my parents, and so that's where I ended up going. But my senior year in high school, I was the drum major for the Waycross High School band. So I got my first little taste of teaching marching band, as well as doing what I'd done with the special projects. David Christopher was my senior high director at Waycross High, and he was a Troy grad. So he pushed pretty hard for me to go to Troy, other than some of the other schools, because I'd looked at the University of Georgia and I'd looked at Florida State, but Troy just seemed to be the one that clicked. While I was in high school, I had the opportunity to play with a big band. And that big band was made up of local doctors, lawyers, band directors. There were some professional musicians, some retired musicians that played together, and the band was called the Men of Note. And it was a swing band. So I got introduced to playing swing music and really enjoyed it. We played all over South Georgia at golf clubs and events, and in North Florida, in Jacksonville, down at Ponte Vedra. And one of the performances on a New Year's Eve was, I think it was my first year of college. I was home, and we played at the Cloister on Sea Island up in Georgia. And in the audience that night was President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind. Wow. And so we got to play for the president. I think at that point he was former president, but still got to experience the whole thing of the Secret Service and them having to make us leave our instruments on the stage and leave the building so they could sweep them and everything before we started.
Oh, wow.
But that was a great experience to be able to do that. So at that point, I went on to Troy, and Dr. Long was such a great influence. So many, we call them Longisms, that he would come up with. We always knew when he was either mad or serious, because the first two words out of his mouth was Lord God. And when he said Lord God, you knew he was mad, or it was something you better listen to because there was some big knowledge coming your way. So that was how we got going with a lot of things. He had one of his things that we were afraid of was, it was early is on time is late. And he had what he called the opportunity of hardship. If you were late, you were left. No roll was ever called.
Wow.
So if you missed the bus, you had the opportunity to get there, and you better find a way.
And this was before Uber.
This was way before Uber or cell phones. Mm-hmm. So that actually, we left Dr. Long in Fort Walton Beach after a concert.
Oh.
And the State Patrol stopped us just outside of Panama City to put him back on the bus. We all thought we were in trouble. He was completely pleased that we left him, because we did exactly what he had taught us to do. But with all the experiences with the Troy band, got to play for President Reagan at a campaign dinner in Dothan, Alabama at the Convention Center. Went to numerous marching events around the Southeast, played for Atlanta Falcons games, Miami Dolphins games, New Orleans Saints games, and it was just a great time. And Dr. Long brought in a lot of really high-level conductors for our summer sessions to get us to stay for the summer. And during those summer sessions, I had the privilege of being able to play under Sir Vivian Dunn from the Royal Marine Band in London, Jay Julian from University of Tennessee, Dr. Ravelli, and several others during those summers, and learned so much being able to play under those great conductors. So going to Troy was definitely a good decision for me. After I finished my years at Troy, I did my internship at Enterprise High School in Alabama, which was about 35 miles south of Troy. It was a unique situation. There were 3 band directors at the school, Bill Hickman, George Martin, and Danny Meeks. they taught at the high school and 2 junior highs. And we moved as a team from one school to the other every day. So it started at one teaching, all of us teaching beginning band, and then the other groups, then moved to the other, taught beginning band and the other groups, then moved on to the high school for the latter part of the day to do the concert and marching parts of the school day. So getting the full experience in my internship, I think was vital, because I really didn't have much experience with beginners, with starting new students, except for that 12 weeks that I had in high school. I think that really set me up for being a middle school band director. I thought I wanted to teach high school. I never really even thought about teaching middle school or junior high at the time. But as I got started, my first 3 jobs were middle senior or junior senior high schools where I had to teach everything. So I started teaching at a little school in Cottonwood, Alabama. It was K through 12, and I taught everything from elementary music, which was awful, and junior high band, beginning band, high school band, and it was a great little school, had a great principal, but I just couldn't do that elementary stuff. It just wasn't me. Mm-hmm. He jokingly told me on my evaluation that year that he never saw a teacher that could build a fortress between them and the kids with a desk and a record player like I did. But that's how I knew that elementary was not for me. So I left that job after that first year to go to a junior senior high in New Brockton, Alabama, which was a little closer to Troy than I was, because I was going to get my master's and was trying to work on it during the summer. And so that was a little bit easier. There I taught band only, starting at an elementary school where I taught 6th and 7th grade band, and then would drive over to the high school, which was like 2 miles away. And I taught the junior high and high school band program there. And I think one year I did history. One year when I was there, I did history and a music appreciation class that year. But it went really well. My bands were successful. At the end of the year, they had a reduction in staff, and I was riffed. Oh. And principal said, "Oh, don't worry about it. That happens a lot. You're a band director. You'll get hired back at the end of the summer." Well, in the middle of July, I got a call from the principal that said, "I'm sorry, they placed another teacher as the band director, so you won't have a job next year." So in the middle of July, I start looking, and Mr. Ware at Warehouse of Music in Jacksonville, I called the store, and he told me about the job opening at Hilliard junior senior high at the time, and that I needed to go talk to Ms. Revel, who was the principal there. So I came from Alabama to my parents in Waycross and drove down that day to Hilliard to interview for the job. When I got there, I walked in the main building. It was an old school, wooden building, up high. You went up the steps, long halls. And there was this little lady in the front sweeping the hallway, had a little windbreaker on. I said, "Well, okay, this is one of the custodians." So I told her I was there to interview for the band director job with Mrs. Revel. And she said, "Well, she's not in her office right now. You wait here with me for a little bit. She should be in there soon." So we stood and talked for about 15 minutes in the hallway as she finished sweeping. And when she finished, she pushed the broom in the corner and said, let's go in the office. You're hired." I didn't have any idea that was the principal. And
Wow.
when we got in the office, she told me, "I knew by the way you treated me, thinking I was a custodian, that you're the person I wanted to teach here."
What a clever lady.
She was smart. She was a great principal. She ran that school with an iron fist. And it was a good place to work. I taught there for 5 years. In the time that I was there, we transitioned from a junior high to a middle school. So the first couple of years, I had to teach a class out of field each year. I taught geography 1 year, taught remedial math one year. Then we transitioned to middle school, which added another grade. So that made me full-time band and chorus. So I spent 3 years doing that as the middle school, or 2 years as a middle school, because we went through a year of transition. And at the end of that, Mrs. Revel was retiring, and I did in my middle school training classes, I was partnered with the principal from Fernandina Beach Middle School and one of the vocational teachers from here, and when Miss Revel announced her retirement, they contacted me, Miss Mary Tom Drew contacted me and said, "You're going to come teach at Fernandina next year." I said, I'm a high school band director. She said, "No, you're going to come teach at Fernandina. I've already talked to Ada, and you're coming to Fernandina." So I let that roll off. And a week later, I got another call from the principal here and at Fernandina Middle and said, "I really would like for you to come interview. Things are going to change where you are, and I think you would be a good fit here." So Miss Morris talked me into it, and I came over. I later found out that what Mary Tom Drew told you, you did, because she would not stop.
Oh.
She turned out to be a wonderful ally once I got here. Her son was in the high school band at Fernandina High, and she wanted me to feed Johnny Robinson, who was at Fernandina High, and help build that band program up. So we worked together the whole time that I was here for 12 years, and it went really well. When I first started here, my first year, I took the band to MPA. Mike Mitchell was the band director at Landmark Middle, and we had to go there. He helped me figure things out to get things registered and get a bus and get kids over to Landmark. And my band got a superior that year. I was ecstatic. When I first came to Florida, my first band at Hilliard got a 3. And I really didn't like the way that felt. Never got another one after that. Don Reynolds at West Nassau, at Callahan Middle the first year, then at West Nassau, talked me into going with him to FMEA, which I'd never heard of. But our county would pay for a room. So 4 of us stayed in one room for FMEA, and I haven't missed one since. That was an experience that really helped guide me to learning how to be a much better teacher. But after 12 years here, things were changing. Lee Ponder down at Mandarin High School kept after me, wanting me to come down to Mandarin Middle and be his feeder at Mandarin High. So after we were looking at some scheduling changes here, they started an elementary band program at the elementary that feeds this school here in Fernandina. And it was an after-school program, and I could see the damage that it was starting to cause to the level of players that I was having and the number of players that I had. Because before that, I was running a little over 200 students in this band program. And once they started the elementary program, that number started dropping considerably. So I took the job at Mandarin, spent 10 years there. The band was very successful. Again, we made superiors every year. The situation there after a few years changed. It went from a 6-period day to a block schedule.
Oh, that seems to haunt you.
That block schedule. I was teaching band, and they kept dumping these music of the world classes. And because the band room was big, they could put a lot of kids in there. And they kept cramming my band students into smaller, into larger classes, and a smaller number of classes, and giving me more of these music of the world classes. That made it tough, and the administration changed while I was there, and they were not very interested in having a band. They just wanted numbers in a room. So I got a call from one of the teachers here at Fernandina Middle, and it was a weird thing because in the band room at Mandarin Middle, phones didn't work. The walls were thick and no cell signals got in there. So didn't have to worry about turning the phone off because it didn't ring. But I was in the middle of one of those music of the world classes and my phone started ringing. And all the kids got quiet and looked. I went, I don't know, it doesn't work in here normally. So I looked at it and I saw the person's name. It was a teacher from here. So I took the phone and stepped to the door where I could step outside and still see the kids to take the call, because I was afraid something up here was wrong for her to call me during the middle of the day. When I got on the phone with her, she said, call Dr. Mazzella now. You need to call him right now. I said, I'm in the middle of a class. She said, I don't care, call him right now. So Dr. Mazzella was the principal here at Fernandina Middle. So I called him, and he asked me, he said, I need a band director. Do you know of anyone you would recommend for this job? I said, me. He said, you sure? I said, yes. He said, when can you come up? I said, how soon do you want me to come up? He said, this afternoon would be great. I said, well, I'll call the front office and tell them I don't feel good, and for them to get me a sub, and I'll come on up. So they got me a sub pretty quick, and that's the only time I've ever lied to my administrator about leaving school. But it worked out pretty well. I came up and was interviewed. Well, an interview. We sat down in the office and talked for a while and laughed some. He was not my original principal here. He came in my third year, and we butted heads pretty bad to start off with. The first year or two didn't go real well between me and Dr. Mazzella. He told me once that he would never have hired me as the band director here. But after a year or two, we became pretty good friends, and I understood where he was coming from. He was all about the kids. He understood where I was coming from. We were just coming at it a different direction. And we agreed to disagree on some things, and we worked well together for quite a few years. But I have teased him about that quite a bit even now, since he's retired, about he told me he wouldn't hire me back, and did. So, he said, sometimes we can all be wrong.
Well,
Well,
what advice can you give to young directors or experienced directors that will help them not make mistakes?
go to your district meetings, get involved with FBA. It's not that big old boys club that overdoes everything. It's us. It's all of us. And when we all work together, it works for all of us. Without FBA, I wouldn't have made it. I didn't know what to do. Every year was a learning experience. And I had band directors that came in and helped. Lee Ponder was in my room a lot. Don Reynolds was in my room. There's just so many. Dean Castles used to come in my band room here. I learned so much from those guys. And that was because of FBA. Going to our yearly conventions in Tampa and in summer convention has been instrumental on learning to do what I do. I'm still learning every day I go. One of the big things that turned me around was going to Midwest the first time. Lee Ponder had been after me for 2 or 3 years to go to Midwest, and I just can't afford it. He said, stay with me. So ended up, me and Don Reynolds went together the first time, and we roomed together. And Lee told us and took us where to eat, places that we can't carry our wives because they wouldn't even go in. There was a couple of cheap places that we went to eat that I thought were great, but mine and Lee's wife said, no way. But those experiences and sitting in Kitty O'Shea's at the Hilton and talking with Arnold Gabriel and with these great directors, Frederick Fennell, just over a drink, I learned more than I did in any college class. Just learned to sit and listen, and but just being involved and never stop trying to learn, because you'll learn something new every day. Some of the greatest things that I've done has been working with interns, because I've told my intern teachers that I've learned as much from them as they did from me. And I've really enjoyed having these interns. I feel like I've been able to help encourage these young teachers that they can do this, and they can see that even here that everything's not perfect. But it's always worth not stopping. Don't give up. I've had so many students from here that have gone on to do things in music. One of my former students from here, Jason Hooper, was a trombone player, an all-state trombone player. He's currently the head of the theory department at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst.
Wow.
Carrie Mays was one of my clarinet players years ago, now runs the Amelia Music School. It's a studio here on the island that does private lessons in piano. And I've got several band directors. Reve Douglas was a director down in the Tampa area. She was one of my Mandarin students. Samantha Montagliotti is at Sandalwood High School. She was the drum major at Florida State. Tyler Odom is next door at the high school, which is a lot of fun to be able to work with one of my students as my boss during marching band. Another student from Mandarin, Tyler Lasco, was a band director down in the Daytona area. Matt Olsovsky was in the Tampa area for several years as band directors. So these students have all gone on, several students that have played in college bands and in the military bands. So it's good to see these students go on and pursue music, and so many that have done other things. I'm right now, as long as I've taught now, this will be 43 years. 43 years teaching, 53 years in band. I'm starting to teach a lot of my former students' children, which is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I did tell my students the other day, back during the spring, that the first one of them that told me that I taught their grandparents, that would be my last day.
Oh.
That I was going to go ahead and retire. So if I taught your grandparents, don't tell me. So next year will be my last year, this coming school year. So it will be my 43rd year teaching. Never thought I would be at 43 years. I can't. It seems like yesterday was 5 years teaching. Now when we go to the FBA meeting at FMEA and everyone stands and then we sit down, this past year, I looked around, there was not many people standing up, and I was still standing, which was kind of scary. But it's been a great career. It's one that I would do all over again if I had the chance. I wouldn't change it.
Well, I want to thank you for spending a half hour with us and giving us wonderful things to think about and advice. You're very warm and charming, so I hope folks seek you out and aren't afraid to ask you to come into their band rooms now that you're going to have the time.
I would love to go into band rooms, and after next year, I'll be free to go and just call. Just give me a call. I'm on the FBA list. Would be more than happy to go and help anybody that wants help.
What a great attitude. Thank you so much, and now it's time to say goodbye.
Bye.